A7 construction contracts. Basically, these standards provide guidance to the contractors of construction contract in relation to recognition of contract revenue and contract cost, because these contracts are of a peculiar nature which takes a long period of time to get completed. Usually these contracts are such that they are started in a particular financial year but they are completed in a different financial year. So this standard will provide guidance in recognizing the contract revenue and contract cost over the tenure of the construction contract. First, let us understand that what do we mean by construction contract. Construction contract has been defined as a contract which is specifically negotiated for construction of an asset or a combination of assets which are closely interrelated or interdependent in terms of their design, technology, function or their ultimate use. So therefore, construction contract may be for a particular asset or it may be for multiple assets which are closely interrelated, which could be covered in a particular contract. Now, based on the type of the contract which is negotiated between the contractor and the client, the construction contract can be divided into two types. One which is fixed price contract, another which is cost plus contract. A fixed price contract is a contract where the contractor agrees a fixed fee or the contract price, let's say 1 crore rupees will be the contract price, or a fixed rate per unit, maybe the rupees 3000 per hour, which will be devoted on the contract, that's subject to cost escalation clause. This cost escalation clause usually comes into play because these contracts are for a long period of time, and setting a specific rate or setting a particular fee will be difficult if there are increase in cost. So it specifies that if there is increase in certain costs related to the contract price will be suitably revised. Then cost plus contract is very simple. They agree upon the costs which will be incurred on the contract, and based on the actual cost incurred on the contract, the contractor will charge certain markup, maybe 10%, 15%, or would charge a specific fee on those costs incurred. Now we'll deal with contract revenue. Basically, contract revenue will be divided into two parts. The initial amount of revenue which has been agreed in the contract, which could be, let's say, a specific fee or a specific rate per unit, or maybe certain cost incurred plus the percentage, and the contract nature is such that it may require certain variations, or there may be certain claims, or there may be certain incentives which could be paid to the contractor for efficient performance. These would also form part of the contract revenue, but we'll take it in the contract revenue only when these two conditions are satisfied. First, we'll include it only to the extent it is probable that it will result into revenue, because whenever there are variations, it is subject to negotiation and agreement between the contractor and the contractor that so much of amount will be paid by the customer to the contractor, and also they are able to measure those items in a reliable manner. Now we'll talk about contract cost. Contract cost will comprise of three elements: costs which are directly related to the contract, costs which are incurred generally and are to be allocated to the contract. So what is, maybe we have a contractor which is working on several contracts at a point of time. So there are certain common costs which are getting incurred on these contracts. So these common costs are to be allocated on various contracts on some rational and justified basis, and other costs which have been specifically agreed to be charged to the customer. Now let us look at the example for those costs which are directly related to the specific contract. Maybe the labor cost related to that specific contract, the material which are used on that contract, depreciation on plant and machinery which is being used on that contract, cost of moving the plant and machinery to that particular contract site, hiring of equipment if certain equipments are hired for the contract, cost of designing and certain technical work in relation to that contract, any estimated cost of rectifying the work which has been already done, or any warranty which has been provided to the customer, any claims from third parties. This would constitute direct cost which is specifically related to a particular contract. Now these direct costs may be reduced by certain incidental income. Maybe let's say we purchase material worth 10 lakh rupees for a particular construction contract. Now after using, there are certain materials which is left. We sold that material for 50,000. So out of that expense of 10 lakh, we will reduce this 50,000. Now our net expense will be 9,50,000. Now we'll talk about the common cost, right, which is attributable to the contract activity in general and have to be allocated to various contracts on some certain reasonable basis. These would include maybe the insurance cost on various assets which are used, right? So there is a plant and machinery which is commonly used on various projects. So this basically the insurance will be divided between the thing, maybe the salary of managing director, the project manager, etc., who are devoting time on various projects simultaneously. So their salary will be divided based on the number of hours that they have spent. There are certain construction overheads which have to be divided on a reasonable basis. So this allocation has to be made on systematic and reasonable basis, and they have to be allocated based on the normal level of construction activities, and borrowing costs would generally, or as per AS 16, would also form part of these items. Then there are certain costs which cannot be attributable to a contract, or they cannot be allocated, right, to a specific contract, and these are to be excluded. These will not form part of the construction or construction cost of the contract. These would include general administrative costs, selling costs, research and development costs which has not been specifically agreed to be reimbursed, depreciation on ideal plant and equipment which have not been used under that project will not form part of the cost. Now we'll talk about recognition of contract revenue and contract expenses, right? When will we record the contract revenue and when will we record the contract expense? It says that when the outcome of the construction contract can be estimated reliably, then the contract revenue and the cost associated with the contract should be recognized based on the stage of completion of the contract. See, how do we determine the stage on completion of the method? This is usually referred to as percentage completion method. The percentage of work which is been complete, you recognize the cost as well as the revenue. This necessarily flows from the matching concept, right? The cost incurred is matched to the relevant revenue and thereby a profit is accounted for. Then we'll talk about see, there are two types of contracts which are there. One which is the fixed price contract, second which is the cost plus contract, right? When will we say that the outcome of a fixed price contract can be estimated reliably? When all these four conditions are satisfied, we'll say that the outcome of fixed price contract can be estimated reliably. First, the total contract revenue can be measured reliably. It is probable that economic benefits will flow to the enterprise. Both the contract cost to complete the contract and the contract stage of contract completion can be measured reliably, and the contract cost can be clearly identified and measured reliably so that the actual cost incurred can be compared to the prior estimate of the actual cost which was made. Then outcome of cost plus contract can be measured reliably when these both of these conditions should be satisfied. First, it is probable that the economic benefits will flow to the enterprise, and the contract cost attributable to the contract can be clearly identified and measured in a reliable way. Now we'll talk about how do we compute the stage of completion, because we have said that the contract cost and the revenue should be recognized based on the stage of completion of the contract, so that the cost which has been incurred in reaching that stage, right, corresponding revenue can also be recorded for reaching that stage, and the resultant difference will be the profit. So depending upon the nature of the contract, the stage of completion can either be determined with the ratio of cost incurred till date, right, till the financial reporting date, divided by the total estimated cost which will be required to complete the contract. That could be the stage of completion. For example, let's say we have incurred 2 lakh rupees of cost till date, and the total cost which will be required to complete the contract will be 10 lakh rupees. So 2 lakh divided by 10 lakh, 20% will be the degree of completion. The other way could be survey of work performed. This is the physical survey based on the line of activities has to be performed. There will be a physical survey which will be done, and based on the quantum of work complete out of the overall work, right, that will be constituted as the stage of completion. See, what happens is that the revenue and the cost have to be measured and recognized based on the stage of completion, right? There could be certain progress billing have been done, progress payments or advance have been reached. That has nothing to do with the stage of completion. Stage of completion will either be recorded as proportion of cost incurred divided by total cost to complete, or based on the survey method. There could be a circumstance where outcome of a construction contract cannot be estimated reliably. In that case, you will recognize revenue, we will recognize contract revenue only to the extent of contract cost incurred of which the recovery is probable, and the contract cost should be recognized as an expense in the period in which it is incurred. So what happens that currently there is an uncertainty, we cannot predict the outcome. That is why we are recognizing revenue only to the extent of cost incurred. Maybe in future this uncertainty is resolved, this uncertainty cease to exist. In that case, the contract revenue and the contract cost will be accounted as per the percentage of completion method. Now we'll talk about treatment of certain specific items in certain scenario. Recognition of expected loss. So what do we mean expected loss? Let's say our contract price is 1 crore rupees and we estimate that the total cost to complete the contract will be 1 crore 20 lakh rupees. So this 20 lakh rupees is the expected loss. Once we complete the project, we will have an expected loss of 20 lakh rupees. So when the total contract cost is greater than the total contract revenue, there is an expected loss. What do we do with this expected loss? We will record this expected loss immediately because we follow the concept of conservatism. Uncollectible contract revenue. See, there are certain revenues which you have already recognized based on the percentage of completion, and then after recognizing this revenue, there is an uncertainty regarding to the collectibility of this revenue. So the standard says that you should recognize this as an expense rather than adjusting it with your revenue. So you should create a provision for doubtful debts rather than reducing your amount of revenue. Then there could be certain costs which we have incurred for future activity, right? These costs will be treated as an asset, right? It will be considered as contract work in progress if it is certain or it is probable that the cost can be charged and the cost can be recovered from the customer. Then we'll talk about combining and segmenting of construction contract. First, we'll talk about segmenting. Let us look at the scenario. Let's say there is a single contract, right? There's only one agreement or a contract which has been made which covers multiple assets. Then the standard says that the single contract has to be broken up into multiple contracts based on the number of assets if these conditions are satisfied, right? So when there is a contract which covers number of assets, construction of each asset should be treated as a separate construction contract when we have submitted separate proposals for each asset to the client. When the contract is subject to separate negotiation, each asset is subject to separate negotiation, and the contractor and the customer both are in a position either to award a particular contract to that contractor or to reject a particular asset to that contractor, and the cost and revenue of each can be identified properly. So we'll take an example. Let's say there are 4 assets, A1, A2, A3 and A4. We as contractors have submitted separate proposals for A1, A2, A3 and A4, and we are negotiating, right, on each of these individual assets separately, right? And it is possible that we may agree to do A1 and A2, we may reject A3 and A4, or it is also possible on the part of the client to award us maybe A1 and A3 and reject or let's say A2 and A4. So then in that case, each of these assets will be treated as a separate contract, although we have made a single agreement or a contract for each of these assets. Then we'll talk about combining. See, this is a scenario where we have made separate contracts for multiple assets, right? We are doing multiple assets for a single customer or a group of customer, right? And we have made separate agreements for each of these assets. Then these group of assets or contracts will be treated as a single contract, right? These group of contracts will be treated as a single contract if these 3 conditions are satisfied. First, the group of contract is negotiated as a single package, right? We are not treating the contractor in its internal reporting is not treating them as different assets. It is treating as a single contract and it is negotiated as a single package. These assets are very closely related, right, and part of a single contract with an overall profit margin. We are not seeing that what is the profit margin on each of these assets. We are looking at it as a single project and we are looking at the profit margin of a particular project which constitute multiple assets, and the contracts are performed concurrently or in continuous sequence. For example, there are 4 assets, A1, A2, A3 and A4. We have, let's say, made a proposal for A1, A2, A3 and A4. Single proposal has been made and we are negotiating as a single proposal. We are not seeing what is the profit margin on A1, A2, A3 and A4 individually. We are seeing what is the profit margin on the overall construction contract, and these the assets are closely interrelated and the work has to be performed concurrently or in a continuous sequence. There might be a scenario that there is some additional asset which we are supposed to make on a construction contract, maybe based on the requirement. Now the customer is asking us to make an additional asset. So this construction of additional asset will be treated as a separate construction contract if these two conditions are satisfied. If these conditions are not satisfied, it will be treated as part of the original contract. What are the conditions which needs to be satisfied or treating it as a separate contract? The asset, the additional asset which we are making, it differs significantly in design, technology and function from the asset which is covered in the original contract, and the price of this additional asset has been negotiated without having any regard to the original contract price. If these two conditions are satisfied, the additional asset will be treated as a separate contract. If these two conditions are not satisfied, in that case we'll treat these additional asset as part of the original contract itself. Changes in estimate. See, this entire AS7 accounting is based on estimate, because how do we calculate the stage of completion? The stage of completion is calculated as cost incurred till date divided by total cost which will be incurred in completing the contract. So total cost which will be incurred is an estimation, right? Because we are estimating what are the future costs which will be incurred. So if this estimate changes, the degree of completion or the stage of completion will also change, and it will impact our revenue and cost as well. So it says if there is a change basically in the estimate of contract revenue or contract cost, or the effect of estimate of the stage of completion or the outcome of the contract, then these changes should be accounted for as change in accounting estimate account as per accounting standard 5, and the change estimate should be used in determining the amount of revenue and cost in the statement of PL in the period in which the change has taken place, and also in the subsequent period as well. Now we'll talk about what disclosures are supposed to be made under account standard 7. It says that an enterprise should disclose the amount of contract revenue recognized, right? The amount, the method used to determine the contract revenue, and the method used to determine the stage of completion. So three things: amount of contract revenue recognized, method used to determine the contract revenue, and what is the method used to compute the stage of completion. Then in relation to contracts which are in progress at the balance sheet date, right, the enterprise should state what is the aggregate amount of cost incurred and the profits which have been recognized. So we add these two, we'll get the total revenue till the reporting date, the amount of advances which we have received from the customer. What are these advances? Money received before the work has been complete, and the amount of retention. This retention would mean that what happens that the customer may retain certain amount from our bill, right, because either it has been agreed specifically, or maybe there is some defect which we need to rectify. For example, let's say we have billed them for 10 lakh rupees, they retain 10% and make us a payment of 9 lakh rupees. This 10% is retained because we have specifically agreed that you retain this, right, and once there is no problem till a period of 2 years, after 2 years you make this payment. Or maybe there are certain defects in the works which have been performed, and to ensure that we rectify those defects, they may retain certain amount of money. Then this standard requires us to present the gross amount due from the customer or gross amount due to the customer. So it is either receivable from the customer or it is payable from the customer. It is calculated as cost incurred till date, add recognized profit less recognized. So basically cost per profit, yeah, cost minus loss is the total revenue till date less progress billing. So what is the total revenue less what we have already billed? If the answer is positive, it is the amount which is receivable. If the answer is negative, it is amount payable. Maybe we have received extra payment from the customer. By this we are done with revision of accounting standard 7.